1. To start off, this was a few years ago as a bar manager at a 5-star hotel in Sydney, Australia. We were located in the CBD area and were patronized by mostly politicians and lawyer types. It's a quiet day. A group of 3 walks in directly after a rush, 1 male pushing 50, and 2 younger women in their 20s. We have a sign that asks please wait to be seated, but of course being so important he brushes past the section waiter and sits at a table laden with dishes from a high tea we had just hosted for 8 guests. Snaps his fingers at his waiter to clean this up and brings some menus. The waiter flags me down to help clean the table, as there was a lot of things to clear of various sizes and shapes, of course. Not to mention the 3-tier stands, which are 1 per hand scenario. His 2 guests kept saying thank you and asking if we wanted them to shift to a smaller table. The man interjected and said not to worry, as we had mostly emptied out by this point. Although there were other small table configurations ready to go, including a booth by the window, I asked if they wanted a window table at all, and the fellow goes, "Why, so I can fucking look at the street we work on all day?" I said, "Of course, sir, we won't be a moment making the table ready." I got the vibe the ladies were a bit uncomfortable at this point. While we are sorting this out, he starts asking me about the wine selection. After asking a few questions regarding his preferences, I run down a few suitable options for him. At this point he looks over at his lovely guest and says, "Oh, what a surprise, he knows his wine." After dealing with assholes like this all my life, I'm pretty much Teflon, so I made a joke and said, "Only because I drink so much wine," to cut the tension, and allow him to save some face. The wine comes out, he makes a big show of the tasting, using the limited vocabulary he knows to impress his guests. They then order entrees, him French onion soup, and the ladies seared tuna and niçoise salads, and a main each. When I'm doing the quality checks on the entrees, he decides to complain on behalf of his guests. The seared tuna on the niçoise salad looks raw in the middle. I try to explain to him the preparation method, but he said it should be cooked through. I offered the ladies to try something else, but they both declined, saying they were enjoying the salads. He mentioned he was just giving feedback and he was going to pay for it anyway, as he didn't need anything for free. But just mention it to the chefs next time. I of course said I would pass it on and we would take them off the checks, as I eye-rolled my way all the way to the back of the kitchen. You know, to pretend I was going to tell our chefs how to sear tuna. Now for my pettiness. He flags me down to finalize the check. I drop off his bill containing 2 bottles of Kiwi Sauv Blanc, fairly cheap in Australia, 1 entree and 3 mains. The bill is maybe $200 Australian. I pick up a mobile EFTPOS terminal and go over to the table to collect the check. I can see he has specifically written 0 in the tip column. He brings out the corporate card, company name, his name, etc. Now, if ever a card declines, the terminals give us an error code, such as wrong account, wrong PIN, insufficient funds, etc. If it's ever the latter, I try to make sure I say it without saying it. Such as, "Do you want to try another card," for instance? 'Cause otherwise it's awkward as hell. He was chatting up the ladies when I loudly said, "I'm sorry, sir, your card has insufficient funds." This stopped the conversation, and he fumbled around and said, some name and account hasn't paid my bill for a month. I'll get that sorted, just take my personal card." By this point, his tone has changed, and he's being a bit softer with me. I swipe his personal card. Thank you, server gods, for this delicious moment. I interrupt him again, a little quieter this time. "I'm sorry, sir. This card has insufficient funds also." At this point, both of the ladies offered to pay the bill over his protests, even negotiating paying half each. He would have none of it. He made us all wait while he jumped onto his banking app to transfer the required amount to his personal card. The ladies were giving each other looks. The ladies took that time to thank us for the service and the meal. The man looked absolutely defeated by this point. Through some misplaced shame, he decided to shake my hand as they left to say thank you. Like being nice all of a sudden would make everyone else forget he was a total jerk. It was small, it was petty, but it felt like victory to me. 2. I work at a sushi restaurant in a small town, and despite that we are relatively busy. There are only 5 of us working there as hostesses and waitresses, and a lot of us will do both jobs at one shift, with 2 of us working at once. My 2 bosses are Chinese and are brothers. They have owned the restaurant for a little over 2 years now and have got in fights so often they no longer talk. The one brother is great at English and decent with people, a little to a lot pushy sometimes, but the other brother, the main sushi chef, does not speak English well at all, and has the worst temper ever, always fighting with the one cook we have. I have worked there for 6 months now and have become easily the best employee, partly because I am tied for the oldest, 24, but also because I have had restaurant experience before and just in general put in a lot of work, cleaning everything and doing extra tasks. I don't really know why. It's just part of my personality to do something that I see needing to be done. The sushi chef has no problem screaming at young girl employees in Chinese. He does know a few phrases like, "Why are you so stupid?" and "If you do that again, you're fired." He screamed at this high school girl who was an assistant sushi chef, smart as a whip and the best assistant sushi chef we have. And she ended up quitting. 2 months later, the sushi chef told his brother to contact this girl and get her back. He just can't control his temper that much. So I've been there for 6 months, and he has steered clear of me for whatever reason. Though recently, within the past few weeks, he has been screaming at me for the smallest and stupidest things. It's not directly at me, it's to his brother, which is humiliating. And he will use English phrases every now and then, and sometimes these screaming sessions go on for half an hour or more. It's amazing to me how much anger this guy can carry around in order to do that. It makes me feel like garbage at the end of the shift. It also makes me feel like garbage when the manager, who does a decent job of being on my side, comes up to me and tells me to try to not mess up because he gets screamed at. None of these were even mistakes, like needing to be more specific in the comments of an order, etc. Totally crazy for any chef to have an issue with to that extent. Going along and still working, I just think that he is in a mad mood and doing it to everyone. Today I find out that after I go home, this other server was given a free $17 roll. And I guess it happens all the time for her. She says she's sick of sushi from all the free sushi she gets. Her cousin also works there, and they get a ton apparently. And I knew this also coming in once when I wasn't working and seeing a plate of 4 expensive rolls and them telling me that the chef just brought it over. To understand how much of a big deal this is, it's hard to explain without seeing it in action. But they will lose their minds over any ounce of waste. He once yelled at a girl for doodling on tickets and using too many napkins, and he tells us not to use that much ice to save a few cents. This is ridiculous to me because these 2 girls make equal mistakes as me, if not more. They sit on their phones all the time and don't clean, and one girl has a bad habit of calling in all the time. I have no idea why he's so harsh to me and has given them countless free things. And I guess he tells them all the time, "Good job," and this man has never once talked to me. I feel so fed up with this, and I'm wondering if anyone has had similar experiences and how they have dealt with them. I'm debating whether or not I want to talk to the manager brother, who is very understanding most of the time, but I don't want it to seem like it's about the free rolls when really it's about how I don't want to deal with his anger anymore. And I've not worked at a single place out of many places that I have worked at, where bosses will be so ruthless over a small mistake, and so obviously have favorite certain employees. Also, I am wondering if I'm just being a baby, and this is not even an issue at all. It's possible that I'm making things out to be worse than they are. 3. At the beginning of last year, I made a decision. I decided I was going to leave my brunch job of 3 years to move on to something new. I wanted more experience, more money, and a more professional work environment. After a few days of handing out resumes, I got a call back from a restaurant that I had thought was way out of my league. Fine dining, full bar, beautiful ambience. During the interview, I confessed that though I had years of experience, the vast majority was brunch experience, and my wine knowledge was practically non-existent. I was shocked when the interviewer offered me a stage later that week. After the stage, I was sure they wouldn't bring me back because I barely did anything. But to my surprise, they offered me the job. I trained for a week and worked one very dead weeknight as coronavirus got serious. And then everything shut down. I spent the rest of the summer assuming I would never be invited back because they were surely going to downsize and I was the last hire. Lo and behold, they brought me back in August. And this is where it all went downhill. Look, I am not new to serving. I know that it is inherently stress-inducing most of the time, and being overset, having to remember a billion things at once, and taking shit from customers are all just part of the job description. But this was another level. Turns out the vast majority of the previous staff wanted to continue receiving unemployment, or had entered new lines of work, so very few people actually came back. So we were immediately understaffed. Additionally, we were only open on the patio, which they packed with as many tables as possible. I think I was averaging a 9-table section. Of course, this is COVID, so all the tables are spread out, meaning I'm running laps back and forth all night. On top of that, I have no fine dining experience, no wine knowledge, no knowledge of the specific cuisine type we serve, and not a whole lot of liquor and cocktail knowledge either. The brunch place had pretty limited alcohol options. So I have an 8 to 10 table section spread out across a patio, and I am coursing everything out, which I have also never done before. Oh, and keep in mind, I had worked at this restaurant for a total of 2 weeks, 4 months ago. I am immediately thrown to the wolves, and as you can imagine, it was a fucking disaster. So obviously I make some mistakes, but nothing too crazy until one night. I have a table of 10, and right before service my manager tells me that we are transitioning from one duck dish to the next. So she has printed a menu specifically for this party with the upcoming duck dish in order to avoid running out of the old one for part of the party. However, in the point of sale system there is only one duck dish button. So several hours into my shift, this party gets set. A few people order the duck dish. I go to put the order in, completely forgetting about the special menu, and I see on the screen duck dish, 2 orders left. I freak out that we don't have enough, go to my manager. She freaks out too, also forgetting, and then goes to the chef, who also freaks out. In the end, the kitchen managed to pull it off and the party was happy, but at some point we all realized what happened. I get completely blamed for the mix-up and lose half of my shifts because of it. Now, I know I messed up, but if you ask me, the whole situation was a little confusing, especially when you're trying to keep track of like 5 other tables. At this point, I'm furloughed again because they closed down a second time because of COVID, and I'm not sure I'll be asked back or if I even want to go back. I feel like 8 to 10 tables is a lot, especially for fine dining. All the servers seem overwhelmed, so how the fuck do you expect me to do when I'm new and have so much to learn? It sucks because I was really excited for this opportunity, but I don't even understand why I was hired at this point. It seemed like the expectation for wine knowledge in fine dining is very high, and I told them in the interview that I didn't have those things. Of course, now it will be impossible to find a job somewhere else in this industry. I'm just so fed up with restaurants, man. I keep thinking that I'll find a job somewhere with decent working conditions, but I'm starting to wonder if that even exists in the restaurant industry. 4. I never thought I would work in my current restaurant job for 6 years. At first, it was just a college job, but I moved my way up from a food runner to server and bartender after 2 years. I pretty much graduated with a bachelor's in 2016, which is about the same time I started my serving promotion. I didn't want to look for a new job because money was really good serving, and I knew any job I would take would mean a pay cut. I was like, yeah, I'll hold off for a year or 2. Then 1 year turned into 2, then 3, then 4. The benefits kept getting better and better too because I was offered full-time, which meant health insurance. And in 2019 they even offered 401k with matching. I had a really great grandfathered schedule too, with Friday and Saturday off most weeks, and would pull in about 60k a year before tax, working 25 to 30 hours a week. I was really getting too spoiled and too comfortable at this point, and I knew it was a trap. Had friends that got out and told me, you are stuck. But after a couple years serving, I had no interest in moving up to management, because it was 60-plus hour work weeks with random days off. I was getting tired of being on my feet so long, not getting lunch breaks because most of my shifts would be under 6 hours. My place is very busy, too, so no downtime. I was tired of dealing with shitty customers, having to work most holidays, not having PTO sucked too. A lot of my friends worked corporate and would have PTO plus days off for holidays. I would see my friends move up from entry-level positions to now senior management positions, and they would rake in even more money. This felt very demoralizing for me because I was pretty much capped at what I make, and had no interest to move up to restaurant management. Yes, my base pay when I started serving was higher than my friends due to good tips, but after 4 years, most of my friends make more than me due to promotions, getting senior positions, etc. Even then, I said to myself I would try and look for a new job, but I just never really did it. Kept saying I would, but kept staying at the restaurant because money was good and I was too comfortable. Finally, when COVID hit back in March, I was temporarily laid off because there was no need for servers. I tried to job hunt, but nothing was up at the time. Rode unemployment until I went back to work in June, and we had a lot of COVID safeguards, such as having to wear face masks and face shields. Still, I felt a bit sketch because my workplace was still busy and I encountered so many people daily. Even then, I kept on working until California pretty much locked us down again in early December, with closing indoor and outdoor dining. That was when I decided to really make a change and said I wanted out. All the cons of the restaurant was starting to get to me and wear me down. I realized this was the perfect opportunity to get out. Unemployment would be paying me since I wasn't working, and I had all the time in the world to job hunt. I 100% knew that whatever corporate job I get, it would be a decent pay cut compared to serving. But I really wanted a corporate job with growth, PTO, paid holidays, health insurance that covered dental and vision, and 401k. I started applying for jobs in December, and after applying to many places, I finally heard back from one place. And after 3 interviews later, I have an offer which is much lower than the $60K I would make serving, but I would get PTO days, 10 paid holidays, good health insurance, good 401k, and room for growth, which I see in the long run will help jumpstart my corporate career. So yeah, that's my own story of how I got out of restaurant finally during COVID, and landed a new corporate job. And there is hope for you guys out there looking to get out of the industry as well. 5. I will try to make this as concise as possible. I manage a hibachi restaurant. We are very popular, so on the weekends we are usually fully booked by 4 p.m. Especially with COVID restrictions, we have to plan out every seat at every table so we can keep people apart. It is extremely tedious, and we plan the night down to the seat. At 6 p.m., my hostess comes up to me and says that a lady is trying to get a spot for 3 people, and she will not take no for an answer. She is told we can seat her at 8:30, but she is not having it. I get on the phone with her and tell her the same thing. We have nothing available before 8:30. She says, "So I want to pay money to eat at your restaurant, but you won't let me." I tell her we literally have no available seats. Everything is reserved. She says sometimes reservations don't show up, so you can fit me in there. I tell her most reservations show up. We won't have a spot. She then calls me a liar, saying, "I know reservations sometimes don't show up." At this point, I should say that we are booked so tight that I pray one reservation doesn't show up, because it is still extremely tight. I tell her again, 8:30 is all we have. She can come in and try to wait for a reservation to not show up, but it is extremely unlikely she will get sat. She then says, "What can I do to get a 3-seat at a grill for 6:30? I'm frustrated. I say go back in time 4 hours and make a reservation. Even as I say it, I cringe knowing I'm going to get a complaint lodged against me. She asked for the owner's name and is pissed when I only give her the first name and the time she can reach her. I'm not giving some crazy lady the owner's full name. I thought I was done with her until she called during the week to complain, and lo and behold, she comes into the restaurant about 6:15. She starts to harass the hostess. She puts her name down for the 8:30 spot, but spends the next 2 hours trying to harangue the hostess into seating her. Also, this night my bartender left for a family emergency, so while I'm trying to run everything, I'm also bartender. It was a rough night for us all. At 8:10, my hostess tells me we have an open spot for 3 people, and she asks if she should seat that lady. I know it's petty, but I told her to skip her and go to the next people. We actually had 3 people waiting on the list right after her. My hostess was frankly delighted. We finally sat the lady at exactly 8:30, like we said, but it didn't end there. While I was cranking out drinks at the bar, she came up to me and asked for the drink she ordered with the waitress. I finished the drinks I was making to go to the back and check on her drinks, naively thinking she had a valid complaint. Her waitress, who is maybe the best waitress we have, was making the drinks. I return and let the lady know that her waitress is making the drinks and will be out in a minute. She says, "So you're saying you can't help me?" I say no and go back to making bar drinks, and she stares at me. 30 seconds later, her waitress is at the table, which I point out to her, and then she goes back to her table. She is with her 2 kids, or somebody's kids, who knows. She then proceeds to send her kids to the bar every 5 minutes, complaining about how long everything is taking. Kid says, "We didn't get our salads." I point to the table where the waitress is dropping off salads. Kid comes back, saying they're waiting on food. I try to explain once you order, the chef has to prep the food in the back before coming out to the table to cook it in front of you. The kid looks at me like an alien. Eventually, chef comes out, and they are fine. Long story short, I spent 3 hours during a super busy Saturday night trying to deal with this lady. Oh yeah, also the waitress came up to me and said early on, while waiting on her, "I can't do this, I can't deal with her." I assured her that she could do nothing wrong at that table, as that lady had already proven herself unreasonable. Then she handled that table like a champ. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 130. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And story number 2 has given me a craving for sushi. I'm hoping I'll get done early enough and I'll nip out to a little grocery shopping. I was going to be a lazy Hellfreezer, but now that I'm actually well enough to go out, I should just go out and buy stuff. I was able to get a delivery slot, but I was like, no, be a responsible Hellfreezer, let somebody else get that slot, and you go buy your sushi, which I was already craving anyway. It doesn't take much to make me want sushi. So I'll nip out to, don't judge, one of the supermarkets and get it. We don't have any actual places in my town that do that. So that's snacks. I'll drop off my niece's Easter stuff. Egg and just some gummies, some chocolates. A few bits and bobs. Then bath and stream. I think there's a new thing on No Man's Sky. So I'll probably test that out and then switch to Phasmophobia when the Phasmophobia people show up. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.